Call Basin.
No, we're The Score. 92.3 FM KWRZ Canyonville and 1490 AM KSKR Roseburg. It's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving. We're setting up shop, so pop open the cooler, pull up a seat.
Who wants to have some fun?
Let's talk some pigskin.
How about if your team is going undefeated in your league? Maybe the rest of your league's not that good and you had one good team that just was able to beat up on everybody else. But now that the SEC's eating its own, oh no, it's just so deep. The league is so deep. It just drives me crazy.
Drives me crazy too.
And Feinbaum can suck on a bag of potatoes.
From the Score Sports Closet, it's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show.
Well, as Knight Jarecki so eloquently put it together here just moments ago, we're still on Stuck in a Bag of Pickles. Welcome in, everybody. Yes, we are. It is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving, coming at you here on this Friday, December 27th. How you doing? Merry Christmas. Belated there. Happy Hanukkah. Happy New Year. All the festivities. Hope that you have had a wonderful day. For our friends up north, happy Boxing Day.
Well, that was yesterday.
I know. I'm just getting in all the holidays here.
There you go.
Because
the Commonwealth countries.
We want to be included in everybody's festivities here. Welcome in. Happy to have you with us here on this Friday as we get the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show underway, presented by our friends over at BTB Moving. We've got plenty to get to here on today's program, and we are excited to have you with us here as we make our way through this holiday week. I don't know about you, Knight. This week has been so disjointed.
Yes, absolutely.
Like every day has felt like a Friday, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's that calendar that I was showing you last week. It's that pretend to work. No, don't even pretend anymore. That's what it kind of felt like earlier in the week. And then you kind of had that weird middle of the week break. Christmas Day off, a half day for Christmas Eve. Just a complete wrench in the schedule because it literally is the middle of the week. Then all of a sudden you got 2 days and then the weekend. So
yeah,
it feels like it's gone by really fast. The good news, though, I think the best news of the week was not that it was Christmas, not that the World Junior started. We got a fridge. We finally got the fridge in the studio. It's about time.
Yeah, it has arrived, and here we go. I guess we're now a full-on den.
A full-on den. We don't have anything in the fridge yet.
Contraire.
Oh, did you bring stuff in?
Yeah, my lunch. It's in the fridge.
Oh, okay.
It was in my backpack this morning. I just was like, oh, you know what? I could just put it in here.
That's so smart.
There you go. So, welcome in, everybody. The Score Sports Den is up and rolling. We've got college football on the TV. Bowl game going on. What's the name of this bowl game?
I think it's the Armed Forces Bowl.
Okay. We've got Navy in there against Oklahoma here right now.
Playing at TCU's football stadium.
Last I saw, Navy was up.
Yeah, 21-14. Oklahoma was leading that game 14-0. The midshipmen coming back from behind, which you got to think that's a little bit rare for them. I feel like they're always a team that's playing ahead.
They're not a team that necessarily has an offense built to try and play from behind. But, down 14-0. They've scored a touchdown in the second, third, and fourth quarters, and they lead this one 21-14 right now. With 2 minutes to play, they've hit the 2-minute timeout. Yeah. Not a warning. This is not your warning. This is a timeout.
Hey, there was good bowl games yesterday, too.
Were there?
Yeah. Did you not pay attention to any of them?
I did. I just don't remember them.
Actually, it was funny. We kind of joked, and I told you, I was like, man, I don't know if I'm looking forward to the bowl game between Arkansas State and Bowling Green. That might have been the better football game to watch last night. I did watch the last 2 quarters of that game. Way better than Thursday night football.
Yeah, it's not hard to beat the low bar that was Thursday night football last night. But yesterday, 3 very competitive games.
Yeah.
6 time. Oh, I watched football yesterday. We sat there and watched 6 overtimes in the Sports Bowl, which best name of the college football bowl season.
The game above. The question is, though, is it known as the Sports Bowl, or is Game Above Sports the company?
So it's the Game Above Sports Bowl?
Well, that's
the Game
question.
Above Sports Bowl.
That's
where
the question.
Do you put the pause?
Yeah.
It's a great question. Well, can you tell me, before you hit enter, can you tell me what Game Above is?
I'm assuming it's like a gaming company, like arcades. Maybe.
I was thinking like some sort of like sports marketing company. All right,
marketing?
Hit enter, find out for us.
You know,
here.
The other thing too that I could think of is I don't know what it was called, but do you remember was it GameFly or whatever? It was like the Netflix for like video games.
Okay, yeah.
Like a game deliveries.
Yeah, I never have. I mean, Netflix used to do that too back in the day when you actually got DVDs from Netflix. Before,
yes, I was alive for that.
Okay,
yes.
Good.
No, I remember that. I missed that. You can't just click like add to list and then it like ships out to your house.
Yeah.
I miss those days.
That's because people don't get DVDs anymore.
Yeah.
Although my wife is coming back from Wisconsin with the complete series of Game of Thrones, so I'm
Wow.
looking forward to that one. That could be a lot of time lost.
It looks like a
watching that.
sports marketing company.
Boom!
Yeah.
Called it. Game,
Yeah,
but is it Game Above Sports?
It's just GameAbove.com.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's just the Sports Bowl.
So
It's
it was
just Game Above.
It was the Sports Bowl presented by Game Above.
Yeah, it was. The Game Above is a successful, multifaceted brand that includes charitable giving, capital investment, sports entertainment, and media ventures.
Yep. That sounds like a sports marketing company right
Yes.
there. Got it. Game on. Game Above Sports Bowl. The Sports Bowl, I mean, that's a new one. I've never heard of the Sports Bowl before.
Yeah.
That's not a traditional
Well, last year it was known as the
football.
Quick Lane Bowl.
Okay. Just
So-
so much fun. So, yeah, yesterday you had 6 overtimes in that one. You had the 3-point game in the Kansas State and Rutgers. And then you wrapped it up with what was that?
The 68 Ventures
68 Ventures Bowl. I was looking for the name. There in Mobile. Is it Mobile? Is it Mobile? Mobile, yeah, Alabama. Arkansas State winning that one by a touchdown. Widest margin of any of the games,
Yeah.
but all of them very competitive.
That
So-
K-State game against Rutgers ended up being a great game.
Meanwhile, I'm looking at the drive results for Oklahoma here in the current bowl game. Punt, missed field goal, fumble, punt, halftime punt, downs. Not great. Kind of looks like Thursday Night Football from last night. Although if that was the case, it would have probably just been punt. My brother texted me last night and said, "Oh, man, I haven't really been watching the game." And I was like, "You're not missing anything whatsoever unless you had any money riding on punts last night," which I don't know if there is a wager you can make.
I wonder if those Iowa fans are in attendance. You know, the guys that go every year for the Iowa-Nebraska game and they wear the shirts that just say punts.
They just love absolutely
punts.
watching punting.
If you're an Iowa fan, you got to love punts. Honestly, as a Raiders
You
fan,
better.
I
don't know if you have a choice.
You know, as a Raiders fan, it's honestly been kind of a blessing because in my lifetime we've had Shane Leckler and AJ Cole, who have been two of the best punters in the NHL for a majority of the time, and so it's always been an advantage for us Raiders fans to have the punter, and we do cheer the punter on. I mean, and then you had Marquise Lee, or not Marquise Lee, Marcus
Yeah.
King, Marquise King.
That sounds right.
Yeah. He was great. He was
Yeah.
the problem with him
He
is
was kind of like a Pat McAfee type of punter.
Yes,
where
that
he
was
just had the attitude.
No, but that was the problem is he had the attitude, and so he would punt the ball 60 yards, but then he'd get a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct, and so it'd be a 45-yard punt, and you're like, dude, can you just be quiet and just accept that you had a good punt?
You are the punter. Please know your role.
Yeah.
And just do that.
Actually, he has a funny story. His journey to kicking and punting was that he was in college or something, or just about to start college, and he got a four-square ball, a rubber ball, and he just kept kicking it as high as he could in the air, and that's how
he became a great punter.
Good punter is just that.
There you go, kids.
Yeah.
Learn from the pros. Well, punting was definitely a theme last night, and it's kind of where I wanted to start out today's program as we get things off and rolling here. Our final show, by the way, of 2024.
Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Last night we had, I guess, a football game, you could call it. Feet were involved because there was a lot of punting, only field goals, no touchdowns. It was miserable, and it was kind of what has been a trend here this week on what looked to be just a fantastic week for those of us that love to watch the gridiron. It's been kind of miserable. I don't know about miserable, but it's just not been great. What's up with all this lousy football? That's where I want to start. It's our cold open as we get this tailgate party underway.
Nothing gets a tailgate party going like a nice cold beverage. So let's crack one open and kick off today's show with our top story.
Under pressure again. He's going to get swarmed and sacked. Meanwhile, there goes Williams, and talk about a sack, a killer sack. 3rd and 8.
And they come again.
Pressure, look out, and he's going to go down again.
Frustrating, annoyed, but learning.
I would say. I definitely think, I think this is going to be good for me. Excited about this last game, and then, excited about the future.
That's the attitude you have to have.
Yeah.
I believe in the future because the present stinks.
You can probably guess a lot of that. That was Al Michaels on Thursday Night Football, Amazon Prime. A lot of I listened back to it was defensive highlights, so I guess that explains a lot of it. There were a lot of sacks mentioned in that one there by Al Michaels. You had Caleb Williams after the game in his post-game press conference talking about how he is excited about the future. And then it was, of course, the, pretty obvious comments there from Ryan Clark and Bart Scott on ESPN Get Up this morning. Yeah, there's really not a lot to be excited about on the present, so I guess the only thing you got to really look forward to is the future if you are Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. The Bears, they were the number 1 overall draft pick. They have some offensive weapons. There was excitement with Caleb Williams coming in. So, yeah, there was maybe at the start of the season reason to be excited, but they've been kind of in the dumps for a while. I don't know if we should have expected that this was going to just turn around all because they got Caleb Williams. There's a lot of pieces that go into making a football team, so I'm not really surprised that they suck. But the Seattle Seahawks are a team that are in the playoffs. What the heck happened there? 6 points is all they man. At least Chicago had a couple of touchdowns called back. Holding, there was one that was a fumble. Defense almost returned for a touchdown, but they were ruled down. Chicago almost had a couple of touchdowns. I don't know if Seattle even sniffed the possibility of a touchdown in that game. And it is just one of a number of games here recently that have just been absolute snooze fest for the NFL. And my question, what the heck is going on here?
Well, I think it's a mixture of a lot of things. I think the big one is just Thursday Night Football and the way that it's set up. And I know that this has been a thing for a long time, but it feels like Thursday Night Football, the quality of game you get on those Thursday games is certainly a tick down compared to what you get on Sundays. Monday Night Football, you kind of get a little bit extra compared to Thursday Night Football. And a lot of that is due to the amount of time that you have to prepare for a game. And the NFL is tough. It is a physical sport. It's not like baseball. It's not like basketball.
There's a reason why you usually have about 6 days in between games.
Yeah, exactly. Because your body takes a hit. And I think that a lot of guys are just hurting right now. I was listening to John.
This was week 17.
They've
extended the season. They still have another week to go.
Yep. And all that. And you have, 3 days to prepare? Because you finish up Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you're probably traveling, so maybe even 2 days. Monday's an off day probably to just recover. So maybe even just 1 day. It's tough. It's tough. And your whole mindset is preparing for that team on Sunday, and then once you get done with that game, then you kind of have to go already into work mode for Thursday Night Football, already starting to prepare for the next team. And I don't think that it gives coaches and players enough time to prepare to the best of their abilities. And I think that's what you get. You get a sloppy performance because you kind of get sloppy preparation because these players don't have time to learn new plays, learn the new formations that the coach may want to implement into the offense, and they don't have time to learn the opposing team's full blitz package, full coverage package, and all of this. And so I think that the competition is a little bit down because of the time that you have to prepare. Now, do I think that eliminating Thursday Night Football is the solution? No, I don't necessarily think that, and I think it's great for the sport. I love having football on Thursdays.
Yeah,
but I think what you need to do is you need to have it kind of be one of those things where you have a bye week and then you play Thursday Night Football.
Or you play a home game early on a Sunday so that you have all the rest of that day to get home, rest up, and you're at home so you don't have to travel back to your home site before you play on a Thursday night. I do think that we need to have and look, I can't imagine any of this is new for the NFL, right? They've got smart people. It's not an easy job to put together the NFL schedule. They've got AI and all the computer algorithms and whatnot to do it now, but this has been a project that they've done for a long time. Thursday Night Football is nothing new. So I got to imagine that they do account for that, and yet we still, this week you had a lot going. Monday, this was the thing. I thought this was setting up to be a fantastic week, right? You had Monday Night Football. Tuesday was an off night. Then you had Christmas Day doubleheader.
Yep.
Then you had Thursday Night Football. Friday, we've got college football, but no NFL. Then Saturday, you've got 3 games on in the NFL schedule. Sunday is a Sunday where you're going to have games all day long. This was a great week with the NFL featured all week long. And what did we get? Monday Night Football was an absolute blowout, 34-0 Green Bay. Christmas Day, 31-2. I think it was a scoregami. 31-2. Baltimore just destroys Houston. Kansas City wins 29-10 against Pittsburgh, which that was the first game of the day. Everybody thought, boy, what a boring game. Oh, wait, Baltimore and Houston, even worse to finish it out.
Yeah.
And then you get last night on Thursday Night Football. This has not been a highlight week so far for the NFL. Even though I think they are raving about what happened with the NFL on Netflix on Christmas Day. There's definitely been things that I'm sure they're excited about, but the product on the field looks bad. And maybe Christmas being on a Wednesday, you can't, it's not going to be like that every year. So maybe that is just a bit of an anomaly for this year. But I do think all the NFL stretching itself to try and cover so many days like we had this week, it's great for us, the fans. It seems really good. Like you said, I don't want to necessarily give up Thursday Night Football, but maybe the NFL's starting to stretch. I mean, with the number of days that you can play on, because Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, all are possibilities, especially at the end of the season. Plus, they continue to stretch the season another week. Maybe they're starting to stretch themselves too thin, and while we're all craving football, if the product really starts to go downhill late in the season like this, does it start to hurt the NFL eventually? I don't think it's going to happen this year. I don't think it happens next year. But, if this continues to be a trend for the next couple of years, these late season games, I think people are going to start realizing they're just not all that worthwhile.
I think that it's a little bit of just kind of the player mindset and where they're at in the season.
Yeah.
I mean, you're starting to figure out the playoff standings.
Yeah.
And the Seahawks winning yesterday was big for them because right now they're 9-7, and they have an opportunity with the Rams potentially losing to the Cardinals to be at the top of the division going into the final week of the season. So that was a big win for them. But I do think that overall, it's just the quality of play is certainly down. I think the rest days are certainly down, and I think that plays a factor, like I said. And I think that, where the NFL is at, the best performance on Christmas was Beyonce. And the fact that she came out there for the Netflix was huge for the sport. Got a lot of people viewing it. But no, not a lot of great football from the NFL after we had an amazing weekend. Was it last weekend or the weekend beforehand with the Lions and Bills?
Yeah.
Where that was an absolute great showdown. And, more of those matchups are to come with the postseason. It just kind of feels like we're kind of in that same holiday mode where they're just pretending to work. And just,
the NFL's gotten on that same calendar.
Yeah, and a lot of that is also teams have locked up spots. Right now in the AFC, 5 teams have locked in their spot. In the NFC, 6 teams have locked in their spot. So there's a lot of eliminated teams that are out there competing. But man,
what's crazy, though? You mentioned that. The teams that have played here in this last week, Seattle, the Rams, who 2 weeks ago, Rams and Niners on Thursday Night Football, 12-6. That's 2 in 3 weeks. Thursday Night Football has been
touchdowns.
all field goals.
Yeah.
2 games in 3 weeks.
Wow, what a play. So Oklahoma just scored a touchdown with 6 seconds to go to try to tie it 20-21, and they went for 2 and missed it. And Navy just hangs on. I guess they're going to hang on now, 21-20.
Yeah, we'll see if there's any sort of review of any of that. But I was just looking up and realizing, something big just happened. But real quick, finish my point here. Seattle, Los Angeles Rams, Houston, Pittsburgh, those are all teams that are either clinched or they are on the inside of the playoff picture right now. Over 4 games that they've played here in the last couple of weeks, 30 points combined.
Wow.
Only 1 touchdown.
Well, I know they're clinched, but maybe they don't deserve a spot in the playoff.
Well, we'll hear from Kirk Herbstreit on maybe some of that here a little later on. So there you go. It's just, I think what really kills me is these are the primetime standalone games. If this was a game on a Sunday where there's 7 other games going on at that same time, it's not as big of a deal. But the fact that these are the primetime standalone games and we get
6-3.
What's that? That's 3 field goals. I mean, it's just brutal.
It is brutal. And I mean, you also have to factor in the weather. It was raining yesterday.
It was pretty wet. Yeah.
And
Ooh,
it's cold.
onside kick in the college football where you can still actually maybe get an onside kick.
Oh yeah.
Timeout called. So it kind of is. I'm sitting here scratching my head, going, "What is going on with the NFL? This is just brutal." And part of me wonders, longer season. Games on more days that aren't your traditional Thursday, Sunday, or Monday. And I just wonder if the NFL may find itself in a spot where it is a little worried about that going forward.
I think they're doing very well.
I know.
In comparison to other leagues and the ratings,
the NFL
I don't think doing very well.
I don't think they need to worry, but the NFL sees in Netflix, and I want to talk about Netflix later on in the program, but Netflix having good success with their streaming-only games on Christmas Day. You see that. You have more streaming. Like the NFL, they've been expanding their borders. They're playing games in Mexico, in Germany, in London. Like they've got games all over the place. The season starts sooner, going longer. All of this stuff. You think the NFL is going to ever be like, no, we shouldn't continue to try and do more? Are they going to maybe kind of find themselves pushing the envelope a little bit too much at some point?
I think if they start to see numbers drop, certainly. I mean, that was certainly the case. They used to have a game in Canada every year.
Oh, onside kick got touched too soon.
Yeah, they used to have a game in Canada each year. The Bills, actually, I believe at one point, they would have a home game during the regular season in Canada, and the numbers just didn't do very well in Toronto. And so after, I want to say 4 or 5 years that the NFL did the Canada series from 2008 to 2013, they canceled it. So unless the numbers are really down and they're not finding a lot of success, then I think they're just going to keep doing it. Because at the end of the day, I forget who the bowler is, but he had the who do you think you are? I am.
Yeah.
His thing is to hate me or love me. You watched, and that's all that you could do, and that's basically what the NFL is doing. You hate them or love them. 6-3, you still watched.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I fell asleep at the very end. I actually probably fell asleep a couple of times during that game. But
was your TV on?
It was.
That's all they care about.
All they don't
care about your eyes.
I mean, they don't. They don't. No, the advertisers do, but the NFL does not.
Yeah. How are they going to measure whether or not you're awake to see the advertisements?
Yeah, absolutely.
How do they know I'm not going to the kitchen and grab a beer? You know,
absolutely,
exactly.
All right, we got to get to a break here. If you we want to hear from you. 541-673-5551 is the call-in number.
We got a fridge, so you can call in and let us know what we should put in our fridge, what kind of beverages.
I got a feeling I know what people are going to want or suggest. I just don't know if much of it is what we can put in the studio that the bosses will not frown upon.
I disagree.
I mean, I do know that there's probably some, but I don't know when are we going to partake in something like that?
That's a good question.
I mean, it's Friday at noon. If we start cracking open adult beverages at this point in time, it might derail the rest of the day. And we do still have things to do.
Yes.
I'm just saying. So 541-673-5551. What do you think about the way the NFL's going right now? We're going to be talking college football playoff games, first rounds. Those also were a bit of a dud, but also Oregon Duck football coming up this week in the Rose Bowl, taking on Ohio State on New Year's Day. We'd love to hear your thoughts because this will be our Rose Bowl preview show here on the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show. And so we'll be breaking that down coming up here later on in the program, and I'd love to hear your thoughts because I got asked yesterday, Joey, what do you think about the matchup? And I'm thinking, I don't know. The first one was way too close, and both teams they've gotten better since those games, and so this is going to be a real interesting one, and I'm not really sure. I did do some more research since I was asked that question, and we'll get into some of that coming up here on the program. But I want to hear your guys' takes as well. Hit us up on the phone line, 541-673-5551. You can also reach out to us on X, tweet at the station, 1490 The Score on X. Also, we got the live video stream going on, so you can find us there streaming on our YouTube channel, 1490 The Score on YouTube. Hit us up in the comment section with your thoughts on what's going to happen in the Rose Bowl. All right, we'll take a break real quick, Knight. Before we go, we've got your update coming up here, but what happened here in the end of this bowl game? Because you got the better view of the TV.
Navy was able to get the onside kick after Oklahoma touched it a little bit too quickly. Navy's going to hang on. They were down 14-0, took the lead 21-14. Oklahoma scored with 6 seconds to go. They went for two. They wanted to be aggressive. They did not want overtime, and they're not going to get overtime. They're going to get a loss in front of a very heavy Sooner crowd in Fort Worth, Texas.
Well, I appreciate that they tried to go for two and avoid the overtime. I think that is the right decision, although it doesn't work out there. We've got college football talk coming up when we return. Right now, let's get you a sports update with Knight Jarecki.
For your Score Sports Update, I'm Knight Jarecki. In high school hoops, the Sutherland Bulldogs began play in the Vince Dulcich tournament in Astoria yesterday. The Bulldog boys went down to the wire with Tillamook, but came up just short in a 39-37 loss against the Cheesemakers. The Sutherland boys will face off against Estacada this afternoon. The Sutherland girls were outmatched by the Crescent Valley Raiders 55-39. The Lady Bulldogs are slated to face off against Catlin Gable this morning. In other matchups coming up today, the Douglas Trojans face Jefferson in the Harrisburg tournament. Oakland takes on Weston McEwen in the 2A preview tournament in Pendleton. Riddle travels to Illinois Valley. Camas Valley hosts Reedsport. And the Elkton boys continue play in the Classic at Damien as they face off against St. Genevieve at 11 a.m. That tournament down in Covina, California. You can check out the full prep schedule online at 541radio.com. For the Portland Trailblazers, after a couple of days off for the holidays, the Portland Trailblazers returned to the court on Thursday and gave the Moda Center fans a gift against the Utah Jazz. Scoot Henderson hit a fadeaway jumper just before the final form to give the Blazers a 122-120 victory over the Jazz. Portland had to rally from a 15-point deficit to pull off the win. Henderson caught fire in the fourth quarter along with Denny Avdia to spur the Blazers for the win. Avdia scored 14 points in the final period and tied Shaden Sharp with 27 points for the team lead. Henderson had 12 points in the fourth quarter and finished with 18 total points. Portland continues its homestand on Saturday with a game against the Dallas Mavericks. And yesterday in the NFL, it was quite the sleeper between the Seattle Seahawks and the Chicago Bears. The Seahawks able to pull off a 6-3 victory on the road at Soldier Field yesterday against Caleb Williams. And the Chicago Bears, just the second time this season an NFL game, featured no touchdowns.
Whether it's across town or across the state, moving is always a chore. So let BTB Moving help with your next move. BTB Moving is a labor-only company offering statewide services, such as packing and unpacking, loading and unloading, piano moving, cleaning services, and 24-hour emergency services. BTB Moving is an affordable, veteran-owned company here to help with your next move. Call 541-315-0122 or find BTB Moving on Facebook. That's BTB Moving for all your moving needs. Coming up on your sports schedule this weekend, plenty of NFL coverage. We've got a doubleheader on Saturday, a tripleheader on Sunday, plus Monday Night Football coming up next week. And don't forget to tune in for the Rose Bowl, Oregon and Ohio State, coming up January 1st on KQEN. Find the full broadcast schedule posted at 541radio.com.
Come hang out at our tailgate party. Give us a call at 541-673-5551 or send us your thoughts on the 541 radio app or find us on Twitter at KSKR The Score.
Welcome back to the Score Sports Den, where the program is off and rolling. This tailgate party is cruising right along. Well, we got more bowl games coming up here. Hayes King, Georgia Tech. Those guys are... Oops, let's turn on Mike's Knight's mic there. Yeah.
What a great matchup. Like, two teams that have just spoiled teams' hopes this season. Yeah, Georgia Tech spoiling Miami's hopes at a college football playoff.
Almost spoiling Georgia's as well.
Almost. I think that's so fascinating. Like, if Georgia loses that game, like, what's that do for them? Because Carson Beck's hurt.
Yeah.
Obviously, they go to the SEC championship and win that, but I don't know. Things could be a lot different.
Yeah.
A lot different.
Yeah, it was kind of a crazy finish there for the college football playoffs. And as we get back here into the program, the show brought to you by BTB Moving, providing labor services for your moving needs. Veteran-owned, affordable, dependable, efficient, and careful. Senior and veteran discounts are available. You can book now at 541-315-0122 or find them on Facebook at BTB Moving, our friends over there. Speaking of the college football playoffs, getting ready for the quarterfinal games coming up starting on Tuesday and then wrapping up with 3 games on New Year's Day. Looking forward to that, but we had first-round games this last week, and there was a lot of thoughts on those games, weren't there?
Yeah,
there were a lot of thoughts on those
a lot
games.
of thoughts from a lot of people,
including whether or not teams should be included, whether or not teams should be there, whether or not it should be a 12-team playoff. All sorts of thoughts ranging on this one. A lot of lopsided games in those playoffs from last week. Penn State wins over SMU 38-10. Texas 38-24 over Clemson. Ohio State 42-17 over Tennessee, and Notre Dame 27-17 over Indiana. Just a lot of lopsided scores, and we had comments from a lot of folks about whether or not teams deserve to be there and whether or not teams that got left out, such as Alabama, who lost to Oklahoma, who just lost to Navy. You had that. You had South Carolina was a team that was on the bubble. You had a lot of teams that kind of thought they should have been in there. Ole Miss, yeah, you had Lane Kiffin just ripping everybody apart.
He was so loud, and then it got to the Tennessee-Ohio State game, and then all of a sudden, not a single tweet.
Not a single peep from him, huh? Okay. Obviously, this is the first year. I was reading about it. A lot of people have complaints about just kind of how this all worked out. The biggest reason for complaining, conference realignment. The structure of this 12-team playoff was built with the idea that there were 5 Power 5 conferences, and there's not anymore. And you might want to say there's 4 Power 5 or there's 4 power conferences. There's really 2 power conferences.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to get as many teams out of those 2 conferences into the playoff. And I think the world of college football is trying to still keep, we're growing the playoff so that there are more teams that have a chance. And I think they're really fighting to try and make sure that that continues to be the case versus just putting in 12 teams out of the 2 big conferences that have a majority of the college football heavyweights in it now. So really, if you want to have some complaints about this, I think you look at Oklahoma, you look at Texas, and you look at USC and UCLA that really kicked off conference realignment, and that's where you start when it comes down to the ineffectiveness of what this college football playoff is this year. Good news is they'll adjust. It's going to take a couple of years because, I guess, of contracts, but there will be adjustments, and I think they probably do away with these automatic first-round buys.
I think they're going to inevitably move to that point. Do I support that? Not necessarily, because, again, I come from a Pac-12 background, and I always was in the mindset that if you won your conference, you deserve to be in. Now, does that mean that you get an automatic bye? Maybe not.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you get an automatic bid to get into the postseason.
Yeah, that's where I would be.
And that's where I would be as well. Now, I think that you're certainly right. I think that the main issue of all this is you got to point to Oklahoma and you got to point to Texas, leaving the Big 12 to go to the SEC. What did that do? It took away the 2 best teams in the Big 12 conference and moved them to a stacked SEC conference.
And it forced the Big 10 to then have to make them – they wanted to keep pace, right? So they have to make a move.
So then they have to make a move, and the Big 10 goes and gets USC and UCLA because at the end of the day, this all goes down to media rights. What they didn't really realize is that when they're big old Thanos out there collecting all these rings and all these teams – what they didn't realize is that creates an imbalanced schedule because it wasn't like you had 10 teams in the conference. I think the Big 12 used to have it right. When they actually had 10 teams, which was the weirdest thing ever to be known as the Big 12 with 10 teams, they had it right. You played 9 conference games. You played every single team in your division. That got away from any tiebreakers. You knew that you had to beat everybody in your division or you had to play everybody, and so you were able to properly evaluate that conference because everybody plays everybody.
And
you don't get that in the 18 teams.
Yeah.
Like, that's the big problem.
That was the Pac-12's biggest thing, was that they played 9 conference games. Other conferences didn't do that, the SEC most notably. And you could kind of, make your way to the conference championship game, which, of course, looks really good on paper. But if you didn't play a very strong schedule, maybe your path to that conference championship game didn't test you as much as it might have other teams out there. And so, there's definitely got to be adjustments. I think it's going to probably be like what you said. Conference champions get in, but you're not guaranteed a first-round bye. And that might have given us more balanced first-round matchups. Now, that said, first-round matchups inherently lately not been close anyways. The 4-team college football playoff, a lot of those games not coming down. I had this stat here. 21 of 30 college football playoff games in the 4-team playoff era, 21 of 30 were decided by 2 scores or more.
Yeah.
That's 9 games over, it was like 10
Well,
years.
And the thing is that, like, just because you get blown out doesn't mean you didn't deserve to be there.
Exactly.
Or that doesn't determine what your entire regular season was.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like, we see it in the NFL, too. The Texans are a playoff team. What happened to them? They got
2
blown
points.
out. They got blown out. They didn't even score a point on offense.
Nope.
Does that mean that, we should invalidate all AFC South teams? I mean,
Oh, no,
I'm in support of that.
You can evaluate all the AFC South teams. They
Eliminate?
suck. Just get them out of it. They're terrible.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, I mean, that's your division.
That is
your
highlight the terribleness that is my hat. Here.
Well, that's the argument they make, though, right? Is that, like, oh, the NFL, like, all the divisions, they're so equal. No, they're not. Like, the NFC North this season is insane.
Yeah.
Like, poor Chicago. Like, I understand that you're having a rough go of things with Caleb Williams, but at the end of the day, like, 6 of your games are against the Vikings, the Packers, and the Lions, who all have over 10 wins.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a stacked division. I don't even think anybody in the AFC South has 10 wins. And right? That's the difference. But at the end of the day, we're not throwing a fit being like, oh, we need to get rid of divisions. We need to get rid of this automatic bid if you win your division. No, we're not arguing that for the NFL. At the end of the day, we're arguing that if you win your league, you deserve to be.
Yeah. So, interesting you use the word deserve, because I wanted to get to this, and we'll get there in a moment. Maybe we'll take a break, then we can have a full segment to just kind of get into it. But Kirk Herbstreit had some strong comments after one of the games, the playoff games, the one he was covering. Indiana, was he? No, that was the Friday. That was
he was on Indiana, and then he went to Ohio State the next day for Ohio State, Tennessee.
So after one of he was on ESPN, had some strong comments about the playoff field, and he has since kind of tried to clarify. His comments got kind of a little targeted, and which led, I don't know if it was just because of that or what, but I feel like we went from Kirk Herbstreit being a cheerleader for college football. His dog unfortunately dies. They have to, he gets cancer and is no longer with us. Just sad because everybody loves animals, and you have that happen. So Kirk Herbstreit, all this positive, he's positive on his outlook with college football. He's got all this positive goodwill because his dog passes away.
And now he's like Prime, and he's doing the NFL at the same time. You're seeing him all over, and
now he's cranky, and he's the villain of college football. Like, everybody's on him. And look, there's haters and there's critics out there all the time. I feel like he's in the darkest timeline, and Kirk Herbstreit is your villain in college football right now, based off of what he said about the playoff field. And he did walk the comments back a little bit and tried to clarify in saying, is it teams that are we getting the best teams into the 12-team field, or are we getting the most deserving teams into the college football 12-team field?
How do you determine best? Best is such a subjective word.
It's a great question and a great topic. Let's get into it when we come back. Let's give ourselves a nice chunk here to finish out the first hour. We'll take a break. We've got a news update here from Knight Jarecki because he is everywhere on the radio, so don't go anywhere. Kirk Herbstreit, villain of college football, is his point correct about whether or not it should be the best or the most deserving? We will discuss when we come back here on the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show presented by BTB Moving. Right now, we got you a sports news and weather update with our own Knight Jarecki.
Good afternoon. With the Score News Update, I'm Knight Jarecki. The National Weather Service has issued a flood potential outlook for significant rises on rivers, creeks, and streams and possible main stem river flooding due to multiple periods of moderate to heavy rain in southern Oregon. This applies to Douglas, Jackson, Josephine, Coos, and Curry counties. Forecasters said a series of wet frontal systems will produce periods of moderate to heavy precipitation through this weekend. Significant rises are expected late this week, but especially on Saturday night into early next week. Watches and warnings may be issued by the National Weather Service if the situation worsens. Listen to News Radio 93.9 FM and 1240 KQEN and check out 541radio.com to stay connected with updated weather information. And covering coastal Douglas County, a high surf warning remains in effect until 7 a.m. on Sunday for the south central Oregon coast. Forecasters at the National Weather Service said dangerously large breaking waves of 25 to 30 feet are expected. In sports, the Sutherland Bulldogs are in Astoria for the Vince Dulcich tournament today. The boys basketball team will face Estacado this afternoon, while the Lady Bulldogs are slated to face Catlin Gable this morning. In other matchups coming up today, the Douglas Trojans face off against Jefferson in the Harrisburg tournament. Oakland takes on Weston McEwen in the 2A preview tournament in Pendleton. Riddle travels to Illinois Valley. Camas Valley hosts Reedsport, and the Elkton boys continue play in the Classic at Damien in Covina, California, as they face off against St. Genevieve at 11 a.m. You can find the full schedule online at 541radio.com. Taking a look at the weather today, 80% chance of showers and rain with a high near 53 degrees. Tonight, rain with a low around 48 degrees. Tomorrow, rain with a high near 51 degrees. Tomorrow night, rain with a low around 46 degrees. Sunday, rain with a high near 52 and a low around 39. News and information is available 24/7 at 541radio.com. I'm Knight Jarecki, here on The Score.
Hi, this is Roger from Cunard Electric. In the interest of fairness, I was asked why anyone would not want an emergency whole house generator from Cunard Electric. I could not think of a single reason, so I would like the listeners to call in and give me reasons. Oh look, the lines are full. Cunard Electric, this is Roger. No thanks, we don't need an extended warranty. Cunard Electric, this is Roger. Yes, thank you, my refrigerator is running. Cunard Electric, this is Roger. I'm at the radio station, so I can ask. Kyle, Harry and Drain would like you to play Build Me Up, Buttercup, and dedicate it to Bonnie and Clyde.
Okay.
Well, all those calls and not a single reason why you should not have Cunard Electric install an emergency generator. Better call today and get on the schedule. Call Cunard Electric at 672-3333, and we'll keep your lights on for you.
Fridays are loaded with football this fall on The Score, and you're listening to the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show.
I should not have made that a Indiana thing or SMU thing or anybody else. It's more about the logic behind how we're getting to these teams. That's really, I guess, my only point I was making. So anything beyond that was just me being emotional and acting like an idiot.
Kirk Herbstreit there on the Pat McAfee show earlier this week, explaining his comments that he had to Linda Cohn about just who gets into the playoff field, and listening to him dissect his comments or his thoughts a little bit more. It definitely did help explain his point of view and where he was coming from on all of that.
I don't think that's an excuse. I was emotional.
Yeah, no. I
idiot.
mean, I'm just happy he got it. He went further into it and explained it better than he did the first time. He was going off about it, and it made it feel as if he was railing on the committee for putting in teams that had just gotten blown out. Made it feel as if he was like, what are we doing? Why are we letting these guys in? It's like, man, if I was a fan of that team, yeah, I would be a little upset with Kirk Herbstreit about it.
Yeah, I would too, because he said, I mean, he pointed out Indiana. I think the one thing that he said with Indiana is you looked at them and on the field they didn't deserve to be there based on the players that they had.
You know what's funny is it was the closest of those first round games score-wise.
It was. And you know what this does is that this diminishes what the home team did. I mean, maybe the home environment's that big in college football playoffs. Like, we've never experienced that, and all the home teams won, so that's huge. I mean, I guess Tennessee tried to go into Ohio State, and it was probably 35-65 Tennessee to Ohio State fans. But still, you get that home field advantage. You don't have to travel. You're playing in colder weather, certainly, other than Clemson. And it diminishes what the winning team did, because who knows? Like, what if Notre Dame's a good team? Like, what if Notre Dame goes all the way to the national championship? That's a possibility.
I mean, it is.
Like, does that change our view on Indiana? Like, what happens about Notre Dame? Like, what happens if they go in and win convincingly, and they win by a larger margin than they beat Indiana by? Does that change your perception of what Indiana is and what they did this season? I think that's the big question. The other thing, too, is how do you define, like, what is the best team? Because, again, he's like, we chose Indiana because they had 11 wins. Well, who did they beat? Well, they didn't necessarily have a top 25 win. I don't think Texas has a top 25 win, other than, A&M.
This was Herbstreit in his words on the Pat McAfee show, trying to explain his argument a little bit better here.
It wasn't even debating teams. It was just, if we're going to pick these at-large teams, if we can all, as a committee, put our arms around each other and say, hey, guys, we've done our job. Resume is important, but these are the best teams that we feel, and that was what they've asked us to do. That's all I was saying.
Yeah.
If these are the best teams, then great. Have at it. If it's a 17-point differential, whatever the score was, I don't really care. I just want to make sure that that's what we're doing. And if that's what we did this year, then so be it. But I just heard a lot of these teams are deserving to be there, and I just, that's not what they're supposed to be looking at.
Herbstreit there on the Pat McAfee show again on ESPN. So,
I don't think that made any sense. Like, personally, I don't understand what he's trying to make, because I think if what he's arguing, at least this is how it came out to me, is, we should put our arms all together and we should just find who the best SEC teams are and who the best Big Ten teams are and who has the highest recruiting rankings each season and who has the highest roster retention rate and who's hit the transfer portal right.
See, I think what you said it best. You said it best, I guess, pun intended. The best teams, it is such a subjective measurement of teams. The NFL doesn't go through and say, these are the best teams because they came from the NFC North. Yeah. They came from the, AFC East. I don't know
AFC
which one's the best AFC conference. I just know that we suck.
AFC West.
Yeah.
I'm the Bears in the West.
Yeah.
We got the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Broncos.
I was looking for the Chiefs, and for the NFL divisions just a completely different show topic, but the NFC divisions just completely screw me up. I have not been very good at learning all of those through the years.
What was I looking at the other day? Was it somewhere I was looking at old baseball, and it was like the Atlanta Braves in the NL West?
Yeah, right.
How did that make sense?
Major League Baseball is not any better either. But, it is completely figuring out best. I mean, everybody's measurement of best is different. Is it the team with the best records? Yeah. Oregon's 13-0. I mean, they've got wins over 3 teams that are still in the college football playoffs, so I guess that means they're really good. But, Vegas doesn't think they're better than Ohio State right now. Ohio State's a 2.5-point favorite in that matchup. So, there are so many different ways you can determine who's best.
Does Ohio State deserve to be the number 1 seed and over Oregon, despite losing to them on the road?
I think you put it best that there is no definitive way to decide who is best, and so we are taking this is never going to be perfect. Is the problem? There's always going to be, whether it's Herbstreit, whether it's Chris Fowler, whether it's Pat McAfee, whether it's Josh Pate, whether it's whoever. Whether it's the fans, whether it's you or me, everyone's always going to have a different opinion and an argument on why things should be different.
Yeah. I think the big thing, too, is that we're just in a very tumultuous time in college football because of NIL and the way that programs are literally paying players to leave their schools to come to their new school, right? It's a different time. You have a school like Tulane that their star quarterback and star running back have now entered the transfer portal. You used to be able to build a roster and, build these guys and develop them. You're not getting that anymore. And so what the argument is that only the big dogs that can come in and pay the money and, get the transfer portal guys and, recruit really well in high school, they're the only ones that deserve to be in.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that we're at. Like that's where we're at in college football. We need to have a little bit of a salary cap of sorts.
Yeah. Some sort of structure to it all.
And don't get me wrong, like when NIL came out, I was like, oh, this is great. Like for somebody like Fernando Mendoza, who's now transferring to Indiana, I thought for someone like him, who was a quarterback at Cal, like if, a local pizza shop in Berkeley was like, hey, can you like come on and, do like a commercial for us? Like, and you'll make some money? Yes, like absolutely. That should always be allowed. But the fact of the matter is that now universities have unlimited power and players have unlimited power to leave whenever they want. They can just literally opt out of the season. You saw that with Bear Alexander, who's coming to Oregon now. And don't get me wrong, Oregon's going to be happy to have a man with Bear Alexander's size and talent on their defensive side of the ball. But after 3 games, he said, that's it. I don't want to play anymore.
Read the writing on the wall that the USC season wasn't going according to plan.
And so he just decided to opt out of the season and sit out and then wait and enter the transfer portal.
I think what you're going to have is some sort of adjustment to NIL where a guy that signs a contract, like I'm sure Bear Alexander had an NIL deal with USC.
Yep.
If he doesn't play a certain amount of games or whatever, like I got to imagine that's going to be part of the contract, is that you can't do things like that you're not allowed to go and just not be a part of the team, the reason why you're making that kind of money.
Well, and the other thing, too, is that, like, these universities have all this money because they're making it from television contracts. And how is ESPN making that money? Competitive games, and they feel like, if they throw in some SEC teams and they add more competitiveness to the games, then, maybe they'll make more money, and then their top schools in those conferences will make more money as well to pay more players. And it just feels like we're in this never-ending cycle of just circling around. Okay, well, this team has this many talented players. It's just subjective. You need just what they need to do is they need to have a commissioner of college football that puts a salary cap on college football and put rules like in place for this is how we're going to rank these teams. Because I feel like there needs to be some sort of like guidelines. It should be to a certain extent like some rules to follow when you're like deciding to rank your teams. And I don't know how that would look like. I don't know if it's, I mean, at that point it's also kind of subjective because somebody's subjectively choosing which rules to follow. But there needs to be some sort of like guidelines because it just feels like right now people are circling over, and if you're in a certain area of the country, you're going to side with one person, or if you're, paid a lot of money by a certain network, maybe you're going to be promoting their interests.
Well,
on
and you
national TV.
Look at the college football playoff selection committee through the years. It has had people with connections to conferences,
it's
to
inconsistent.
Schools. Well, and you've got people on this committee that are going to have, no matter how much they try to fight against it, a bias. And if it turns out to, records winning your conference doesn't have any sort of real weight to it, it's just the best teams, then you're going to have people that, well, my school or my conference that I am associated with, that I have a tie to, whether it's, directly or indirectly, that I'm going to probably pull towards that just because I have a bias towards that. And that is going to be the problem. As you were saying, we're going to start selecting the college football playoff field based off the team with the most 5-star recruits, based off the team from the best and biggest conferences, Big Ten and the SEC. It's definitely going to be weighted in a biased way that doesn't do well for the sport. So I completely agree, as we wrap up the first hour of the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, completely agree that and I've been saying this since before all the conference realignment, the college football has a reckoning coming. Yeah. That this program, it's a damn shame, like you said, it could use a commissioner. And it's a damn shame that nobody in the NCAA has had the foresight, has had the leadership to take control of what's going on with major college football and understood the changes that are happening, that are unavoidable, that are going to be there to try and push this sport in a direction that is healthy for it, for the college student athlete, for the universities, and for the fan bases. Because right now we are getting to a spot where things are getting just a little bit too far out of control. And it is a damn shame as we see college football evolve.
And it's all like the last 5 years.
Yeah, it
like,
really is.
It's so wild. Like for me going into college and like what college football was in 2020 compared to what college football is now in 2025, two vastly different sports.
It
Way
really
different.
is.
I mean, you're seeing it even in college basketball. I don't know if you saw, but Miami's coach, he just had enough of NIL and trying to navigate, led his team to the Final Four. Boom, 8 guys gone.
Yeah.
That's where we're at.
Yeah, it is crazy. We'll continue to talk about it. We'll look at the college football playoffs as we get into the Rose Bowl here. We're asking for your thoughts on that, so please feel free to give us a call at 541-673-5551 or hit us up on the YouTube channel. We got a couple of comments we'll get to there as we hit to hour number 2. Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show here on The Score.
For your Score Sports Update. Hoops, the Sutherland Bulldogs began play in the Vince Dulcich tournament in Astoria yesterday. The Bulldog boys went down to the wire with Tillamook but came up just short in a 39-37 loss against the Cheesemakers. The Sutherland boys will face off against Estacada this afternoon. The Sutherland girls were outmatched by the Crescent Valley Raiders 55-39. The Lady Bulldogs are slated to face off against Catlin Gable this morning. In other matchups coming up today, the Douglas Trojans face Jefferson in the Harrisburg tournament. Oakland takes on Weston McEwen in the 2A preview tournament in Pendleton. Riddle travels to Illinois Valley. Camas Valley hosts Reedsport. And the Elkton boys continue play in the Classic at Damien as they face off against St. Genevieve at 11 a.m. That tournament down in Covina, California. You can check out the full prep schedule online at 541radio.com. For the Portland Trailblazers, after a couple of days off for the holidays, the Portland Trailblazers returned to the court on Thursday and gave the Moda Center fans a gift against the Utah Jazz. Scoot Henderson hit a fadeaway jumper just before the final form to give the Blazers a 122-120 victory over the Jazz. Portland had to rally from a 15-point deficit to pull off the win. Henderson caught fire in the fourth quarter along with Denny Avdia to spur the Blazers for the win. Avdia scored 14 points in the final period and tied Shaden Sharp with 27 points for the team lead. Henderson had 12 points in the fourth quarter and finished with 18 total points. Portland continues its homestand on Saturday with a game against the Dallas Mavericks. And yesterday in the NFL, it was quite the sleeper between the Seattle Seahawks and the Chicago Bears. The Seahawks able to pull off a 6-3 victory on the road at Soldier Field yesterday against Caleb Williams. And the Chicago Bears, just the second time this season an NFL game, featured no touchdowns.
Whether it's across town or across the state, moving is always a chore. So let BTB Moving help with your next move. BTB Moving is a labor-only company offering statewide services, such as packing and unpacking, loading and unloading, piano moving, cleaning services, and 24-hour emergency services. BTB Moving is an affordable, veteran-owned company here to help with your next move. Call 541-315-0122 or find BTB Moving on Facebook. That's BTB Moving for all your moving needs.
Are you 55 or older, or 18 and older living with a disability? Do you feel isolated or alone, lack technology, and want to be more connected to others? Find out how you may be able to get a free laptop, tablet, or even a robotic pet. We'll help you get started and provide you with support for a new device so you can easily learn how to use it. Please take the opportunity to call the Aging and Disability Resource Connection, ADRC, at 855-673-2372 and tell us you're calling about Help to Connect. And if you know someone who could benefit from this free program, please ask them to call the Aging and Disability Resource Connection. Once again, call the Help to Connect program to find out how you may be able to get a free laptop, tablet, or robotic pet. Again, that phone number is 855-673-2372 and tell us you're calling about Help to Connect.
We never have to worry about breaking down because Papa and my dad from Trek Swarm always keep our car in great shape.
That was me, Josh. Chuck Swarman Family Auto is still going strong, and now I'm part of the team with my dad and Papa. We are all committed to keeping your vehicle in tip-top shape spring, summer, or winter.
Schedule your maintenance or repair today and ask about TechNet, warranty, roadside assistance, and other exclusive offers to valued customers. Chuck Swarm Family Auto on Old Highway 99.
Local sports talk in Douglas County. It's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving. Fridays, noon to 2, right here on 92.3 FM KWRZ Canyonville and 1490 AM KSKR Roseburg. We're The Score, Douglas County's home for sports. It's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving. We're setting up shop, so pop open the cooler, pull up a seat.
Who wants to have some fun?
Let's talk some pigskin.
How about if your team is going undefeated in your league? Maybe the rest of your league's not that good and you had one good team that just was able to beat up on everybody else. But now that the SEC's eating its own, oh no, it's just so deep. The league is so deep. It just drives me crazy.
Drives me crazy too.
And Feinbaum can suck on a bag of pickles.
From the Score Sports Closet, it's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show.
Welcome back here into the Score Sports Den. Please don't send pickles. I'm happy to say I didn't get any pickles for Christmas this year. Did you have a good holiday season there, Knight Jarecki?
I did have a good holiday season. You know, I was just actually thinking about that when you said it. Like,
no, don't get me pickles. They will go to waste. No.
What I was going to say, did Santa get you pickles instead of coal for Christmas?
Pickles and cilantro would be your way to either piss me off.
Not a fan of cilantro?
Oh, no.
Really?
I don't ever.
That's so obscure.
I either don't know if it just was never on anything I used to eat, or if my taste buds changed. But I don't ever remember hating cilantro. Now it is up there with pickles, where it's like, just the. I mean,
what did you have that had cilantro on it? That
I'm sure tacos or something. What?
Like, I've never heard somebody just be like, I hate.
You haven't?
Cilantro.
It's a whole thing. You either hate or you like. There's
like,
no real, like,
I understand
don't want to say, like, in between.
Cilantro?
I don't want to say that there's, like, you either love cilantro or you hate it, but like people that there are like a certain selection of it's like genetics or something that cilantro, it tastes like soap. It's terrible. Even the smell of it is like, oh God.
Gosh. I'm glad you found your community.
The worst part is we got Cricket the rabbit, and cilantro is a huge thing. Like, it's a huge green like treat that for rabbits, and so we're constantly buying cilantro for the rabbit. And then when I give it, just like my fingers smell like everything. I'm like, this is just the worst. Cilantro is brutal. But yeah, the people that don't like it, like, there's no like I could give or take on cilantro. It's no. If it's a no, it's a no.
It's a no.
Yeah.
Big no.
Yeah, there you go. Welcome back into the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by our friends at BTB Moving. Happy to have you here with us as we get hour number 2 underway here on the program, our final show of 2024. Any fun items from your gift-giving portion of the holiday season?
Let me think of what. Okay, this one was really fun. It was like a stocking stuffer. My mom got me a giant toonie, like a chocolate toonie.
Okay, like, you're probably going to have to explain.
So a toonie is a $2 coin in Canada. So
how giant?
Like,
as big as your hand?
Bigger than my hand.
Whoa!
Yeah,
that's a big
toonie.
Probably,
actually, maybe it's about like the size of my hand. Like that was pretty cool to see that. A couple of nice shot glasses, some tools.
Ooh, shot glass. Are you a shot glass collector?
No, but my parents were like, you need to start building your collection.
You need to start drinking more. So here you go, son.
So now I have a grand total of 5 shot glasses.
Okay. What were these most recent ones? Because I mean, you can't just. It's not just a shot glass. It's got to have some sort of.
Well, my mom got me 2, and it was like she got them when we went up for the Grey Cup in Vancouver. So one's like a Vancouver specific Grey Cup that has like the Vancouver skyline on it, has a maple leaf and whatnot, and then the other one's Canada specific one, of course.
Shocker.
Shocker. But that one, it's kind of cool because it has the skylines of the different cities. So like it has like Toronto, and it has like an Ottawa, and then it has like a Vancouver on like that shot class.
All right.
Those were the 2 that really stood out to me. Yeah, I mean, it was good. I got like, stuff from the apartment, which I can't complain about.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome into the age of you're getting things that are more like, this is not a necessity, but it's more like I'll use this in my everyday life versus I really want that toy or whatever. Yeah.
What about you?
I bought myself an iPad, so my wife got me some accessories for that.
Big iPad kid now, eh?
I am, yeah, man. I looking forward to watching a lot of Rugrats and Doug and SpongeBob on there. Some of the SpongeBob was definitely later on in my youth era.
Rugrats for sure.
Rugrats, yeah. Doug, some Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Oh my gosh, dude, love Power Rangers.
Oh yeah, big time. That covered some generations right there.
Oh, absolutely. Is Power Rangers still a thing? Like, are kids watching it? Because that was huge.
I don't have children, so I have no idea. But that was my routine of waking up, and before I would walk off to grade school was some Power Rangers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, some good stuff there. Anyways,
I'm trying to think. There was another one that I was thinking of, like a '90s type of show. The Wild.
Thornberries or whatever. That was more my brother's.
Okay.
I never got into that one. So
gotcha.
Welcome into our nostalgia hour here on the program. Getting back to football here as we make our way through on the program here today. We were talking about deserving getting in. I wanted to at least acknowledge our friend on YouTube that is making comments there, Rotary Films. That is loyal listener. I was going to say longtime listener. And the program hasn't really, at least this iteration of the program hasn't really been a long-time program. But loyal listener, though, a follower on there on our YouTube channel. Search 1490 The Score on YouTube. Find us there. You can hit us up in the comment sections. Would love to know your thoughts on the upcoming matchup in the Rose Bowl, Oregon, Ohio State, round 2 coming up. Rotary Films on YouTube. Thinking Oregon scores first, never gives up the lead. Also expects that the announcers will be biased against the Oregon Ducks. That's probably going to be true because it seems like that's always the case, right? Maybe we're just jaded fans.
Well, no, not necessarily. They've never necessarily been against Oregon. They've always been pro-Ohio State.
Or pro-Oregon's opponent, it feels like a lot of times.
A lot of times. I think that it's one of those things where it's the new kid on the block, and you don't like to pick the new kid on the block. You like to go with the traditional conservative pick of picking the guy that's been there, done that for a long time.
So we'll pull the curtain back, but Rotary Films is Knight's dad.
Yeah.
Tuning in and watching. He just informed us that Knight was once banned for a year from watching Power Rangers because he karate chopped his dad.
This is true. This is true.
You got a good karate chop? Dude, you must have if you got banned for a year.
I was like 3 years old. I'm telling you, I was 3, and we're in this little room now. Imagine me going back to my own room, which was probably about the size of this room. When I grew up, I grew up in a very small room. You walked in, it was just basically a bed. But I just remember walking in and just white knuckled, mad about not being able to watch the Power Rangers. That made me want to do Power Ranger moves even more.
From that was your origin story.
That was my origin
story.
From
that day forward, Knight Jarecki practiced his Mighty Morphin Power Ranger moves.
And then maybe this is how I became so anti-fighting.
I'm never going to fight again. I'm never going to be able to watch my favorite TV shows.
Exactly. Can you imagine that on little things? Whatever it may be. We've been watching Corner Gas together.
We haven't been watching it together. We're just watching it at the same time.
Yes, correct. Way to clarify. But what if we?
I don't want people to think that we just sit here in this room all the time until it's next. All right. Well, that was a good 7 days. Let's just do the show again after we hung out together.
If we just continuously went to a coffee shop and then all of a sudden we were banned from drinking coffee, it'd make us want to drink coffee even more.
It very well might. Yes, I think that would be an origin. Man, don't ban me from coffee, please. So
is that one of the things I know you love your job, but and probably never think about quitting, but if work banned coffee, would you quit?
I just don't know if I'd be able to do the job anymore.
Yeah, right?
Because it's basically what fuels every ounce of my being.
Yeah, and that's what the Power Rangers was for me at 3 years old. It fueled every ounce of my being.
Oh, my goodness. Trying to get us back on track here as we continue on with the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show here on The Score. Oregon does kick off in the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day, 2 o'clock from Pasadena. Knight's actually going to be down there, so make sure you tune in next week as we will have coverage from Pasadena. Knight Jarecki will be down there attending the events, getting a chance to talk to players or at least be there a part of those press conferences and be a part of all the festivities, giving us the insight on what's going on as Oregon gets ready to kick off in the Rose Bowl. So stay tuned next week. Knight will be down in Pasadena with updates from the Rose Bowl, and looking forward to that. But this game kicks off Wednesday, 2 o'clock. Oregon, Ohio State, round 2. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think is going to happen the second go-round? It's a neutral site field. You know that Ohio State, they brought plenty of fans for the game at Autzen. You got to expect that the Rose Bowl, that is not an unfamiliar site for Ohio State fans. They'll fill that one up. Oregon fans hopefully will do so as well. And should be a great atmosphere, should be a fantastic game. But what are your thoughts on how this one plays out? Can Oregon pull off a second win against the Buckeyes? 541-673-5551 is the number. You can hit us up there, or you can hit us up on the YouTube channel. Search 1490 The Score and hit us up in the comment sections there. I mean, have you gotten a read on this game? I'm still very uncertain.
It feels like a very uncertain game. You know what it feels like, though, is it feels like last year, Oregon versus Washington. Oregon loses the close one on the road at Husky Stadium, missing a last-minute field goal. Who knows? Maybe Ohio State misses their field goal if or slides down in time. We don't know how that one plays out if he is down in time. Either way, Ohio State loses
so many
the
people
game
want
on
to
the
give
road.
them a win if he doesn't go down late. And it's like they still got to make the field goal.
Yeah, and their field goal kicker hasn't made every single kick this year. It's not like he's automatic. Like, he's been very inconsistent. So you don't know if he makes that field goal on the road in a tough environment like that. So I don't give Ohio State the benefit of the doubt for that slide being maybe a half a second late, whatever it may be. But it feels a lot like that Oregon-Washington game from a year ago, where Oregon loses really close in the regular season, then they meet back up again for the Pac-12 championship, and everybody was talking about Oregon. Who was ranked in that game? Oregon was ranked. Who was, projected to win according to ESPN's FPI? Oregon. Everybody was Oregon. Oregon. Kind of like how they talked about Colorado last year going into that Oregon game too. Colorado. Whatever it may be. It feels like everybody's talking about Ohio State right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is the recency bias because they just came off a dominating win against the beloved SEC Tennessee Volunteers.
42-17.
42-17. And, their best win of the year was Alabama, who also lost to Oklahoma, who just lost to Navy.
Gotta love the transitive property.
Oh, yeah. I love those, you can, go back, and it's this FCS program is better than Alabama because they beat this team who beat this team, whatever it may be. But this is what it is that it feels like everybody's talking about Ohio State. Ohio State's the favored team. It's a neutral site. Ohio State's rolling with a lot of momentum. It looks like they got their offense back and going after just having nothing against Michigan. And where my read is on this game is I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair and a shootout.
Yeah.
Oregon, the 3 best teams they played this year, Penn State, Ohio State, Boise State. 3 teams that
will all be playing coming up in this next round of the college football playoff.
Isn't that crazy?
I know, right?
8 teams, and Oregon is one of the 8. So of the 7 teams, they've played 3 of them that are still alive.
Yeah.
And all 3 of those teams scored over 30 points in those games. Boise State hung 33. Penn State put up 37, and Ohio State put up 32. So it's going to be
all of those games
down to the wire.
I was going to say Penn State was a 1-score game if I'm remembering. Am I remembering that correctly? So
8-point
I knew
game,
it was close.
Drew Aller threw an interception.
Yeah. Obviously a 1-point victory for the game against Ohio State, and then you had the game against Boise State, won on a field goal at the last second. So all 3 of those games come right down to the wire, but Oregon pulls out each and every one of them.
That's why it's hard to think about this game. The other thing too is that Oregon got a little bit of an advantage because they've been probably focused on Ohio State. I think they
probably were.
I think they were probably focused on Ohio State over Tennessee. I think they kind of peeked their eyes at Tennessee, but really were focused on the Buckeyes. I think they had a lot of faith in Ryan Day and the Buckeyes to come through at home. And so they've had almost a month to prepare for Ohio State, plus saw what Tennessee did against Ohio State and what Ohio State did against Tennessee. That's an advantage. Ohio State, their focus has been on beating Tennessee since losing to Michigan, and now all of a sudden you got to go quickly and try to prepare for Oregon. Oregon's had a lot more time to prepare. Oregon's been kind of sitting in the shadows. Everybody wants to talk about the Buckeyes because they just had that win. Nobody wants to talk about Oregon and how they beat Penn State in the Big Ten championship and were controlling in that first half.
Yeah, and I think I heard it mentioned that, like, these teams are pretty even, in a lot of aspects. And so what's it come down to? Could very well come down to coaching. And I know that you probably, on paper, you would think that Ohio State has the edge in that. But I think this has been – Dan Lanning was a first-time head coach when he came to Oregon. I think he needed to take some lumps, and I think we've seen him grow as a coach. So is he an established, guarantee type of thing? No, I don't think so. But I think he has learned and continued to grow as a head coach, and he has built a very solid group around him. And what is the one thing that we have seen, and maybe it's because we're here in Oregon, because we're both alum, we're both fans in our free time. We watch these recap videos. We watch the inside kind of behind the curtain type of stuff that they give us out of the University of Oregon. Now, of course, those are all going to be positive videos that shine Oregon in a positive light, promote that program, and make it look enticing to recruits. But I look at those, and each one has shown Dan Lanning as a motivator.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily get all the X's and O's. We get some kind of coaches meetings and stuff from time to time. But the biggest thing is Dan Lanning as a motivator. You mentioned he's had a month to get his team ready. And I heard it asked, is there going to be the rest versus rust conversation in this? And you know what I think, and I said this before, I think Dan Lanning has done a great job this year, which leads me to think that he'll do a great job with handling the amount of time they've had between their last game in the Big Ten Championship and their quarterfinal matchup in the playoff, that he's going to design this schedule to maximize his team's preparation, get his team prepared, have them focused. And going into the matchup, you said all the talks on Ohio State. Oregon is now, they are the number one seed. They are the only one of two in any level of college, or in any Division I level college of football.
Yeah.
They are one of two undefeated teams left. Montana State Bobcats getting in there as well.
Season opener next year, too.
Oh, that should be a fun one.
I know. It really could be Oregon versus Montana State, and I think it'd be the first time ever you'd have the FBS national champion play the FCS national champion.
Now, that would be cool. That would be pretty cool.
You're right.
But, all, like you said, all the conversation is on Ohio State. Oregon is now the third, according to the Athletics, got their algorithm they do, and they were third best odds to win it all. According to Vegas, Texas and Ohio State are better betting odds to win it all than Oregon right now. They're number one and they're undefeated. What more do you need to do to get some respect around here? Do you not think that Dan Lanning is going to eat up every ounce of that material to get his team ready to go? I mean, look at what happened going into the first meeting with Ohio State. They were a team needing to prove themselves. Like Oregon had a couple of shaky games, Idaho and Boise State. They needed to find a way to prove themselves that they belong in the Big Ten. This was the big Big Ten coming out moment for Oregon. What'd they do? They went out and they played well at home and got the win. I think, to me, this is where Dan Lanning shines as a coach, is getting his team prepared and motivated, and he's had plenty of time to do it, and he's had tons of material to help him get to that point.
Not only that, but also he gets to stay on the West Coast, which is huge for his players. They get to go down to Pasadena, and this is his first time going down to coach the Rose Bowl. But at the same time, for a lot of Duck fans, there's a ton of Oregon fans in California.
Yeah.
And there's a ton in Oregon that will be making the trip down to California. And so you got to get a little bit of a home field advantage, I'd think. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Ohio State has a bigger alumni section and whatever it may be. But, I feel pretty good about Oregon, where they stand in terms of a neutral site game at the Rose Bowl in comparison to a quote-unquote neutral site game in Georgia against Georgia. right? So there is that little bit of advantage that Oregon has. Oregon's had plenty of time to look at Ohio State, and you may argue Ohio State maybe has a better coaching staff, but it's kind of this new versus old school type of team. You got the new coach, the new kid on the block, Dan Lanning, Will Stein, kind of a younger offensive coordinator compared to Chip Kelly, the guy that's been around college football for a long time, been around football for a really long time as well. Defensive coordinator-wise, Jim Knowles, a lot of experience, had a lot of success at Oklahoma State, kind of has brought that success to Ohio State to some extent, not fully. A lot of Buckeye fans, at least, around the time that they played Oregon, they weren't very ecstatic with the job that Jim Knowles has done. I think Tosh Lupoy is maybe the most underrated defensive coordinator in the country right now. Maybe that's an overstatement, but it feels like nobody gives Lupoy the credit. They always talk about Dan Lanning because he's this quote-unquote defensive coach. I don't even think about Dan Lanning being a defensive coach anymore.
No.
At this point, Dan Lanning to me is kind of like a Bill Belichick.
He's a CEO.
He's just like the CEO. He's the guy. He's like some coaches have this defensive identity or offensive identity. You look at Lincoln Riley. He's the offensive juggernaut. You need a good defensive coordinator to pair with Lincoln Riley or Steve Sarkisian. He's the offensive coach. He needs a good defensive coordinator to complement him. With Dan, you kind of don't really get that anymore. I know that he had that defensive background, but the way that Oregon's been able to put up points offensively and find success defensively, you just think of him as the man. Dan's the man. And where it is. So I don't know if there is a coaching advantage for Ohio State. I think that it's going to be a very even game. I think that Ohio State, they want this bad. They want this really bad, especially after not getting the win against Michigan. Ryan Day needs this to save his job. Oregon's just kind of this underrated team, and I feel like Oregon's going in as the underdog. They literally are the underdog. And maybe this is part of the point that we were making earlier, too, is that even though Oregon's had this remarkable season and beaten 3 teams that are currently in the college football playoff, I don't know how many teams can currently say that in the college football playoff.
None.
But because Ohio State's favored in a neutral site, maybe they deserve to be the 1 seed over Oregon, even though Oregon beat them. That's what we're kind of getting at.
Well, you got to get the best teams.
You got to have the best teams
in there. I think it's going to be it's obviously going to be interesting. I think it has the potential. I would probably put it down as what's going to be the best of those college football playoff games coming up this week for the playoffs. I think that is. Yeah, probably the matchup that most people, and granted, it's also at the Rose Bowl. It's an iconic setting. It's going to get a lot of attention for all of that. I think one other thing about this matchup that feels like it should be noted is Oregon has gotten healthier, whereas Ohio State's been dealing with injuries along their offensive line. They looked good this last week against Tennessee, but I think Oregon will be bringing in more that they didn't have the first meeting than Ohio State's going to be able to have. And you look back at that first meeting, there's a call that an interception that doesn't get called that would have gone Oregon's way and taken points off the board for Ohio State. You had a missed field goal there, and for Oregon, you had a 4th down decision in the red zone that didn't go their way. There were points left off the board for the
Jordan
Ducks.
Birch was out right before the start of the game.
Yeah, he was an iffy one there, and didn't play. So
that's a game wrecker right there.
Yeah, I'm talking myself into feeling good about Oregon's chances in this matchup, but
you just don't know.
I'm just not easy about
it. It's really hard because you just don't know, because both of these teams have really good coaching staffs and really, really good players on both sides of the ball. This feels like it is the national championship game.
I was going to say, if this game is crazy competitive, down to the wire, close, and then whichever team advances just kind of beats everybody else all the way to the national championship, that might be the catalyst to get things changed next season for the college football playoffs, to be we've got to do away with the way these teams are seeded in this 12-team playoff, because nobody in the college football playoff discussion wants to have what could be your national championship happening in the quarterfinals.
Absolutely.
You still have, after this round, you still have 2 rounds left to go before you crown a national champion, and to have what could have been your 2 best teams, one of them eliminated early on, that would be brutal.
I think the craziest part is that Oregon could end up having to play Penn State again in the national championship.
Yeah. And that would be another good. I mean,
that would be another game. But like we've already seen how it kind of played out. But like, you imagine if Penn State wins the national championship this year against Oregon. Like, I think that would also spur a lot of change because they'd be like, wow, Penn State had to beat Boise State and SMU for their first two games.
Yeah.
Walked into the semifinals against either Notre Dame or Georgia with a backup quarterback.
It's going to be, I think things are about to start getting really interesting with this college football playoff, and should be a lot of fun here as we get into celebrating our New Year's festivities. So looking forward to it. The game is a 2 o'clock kickoff, and you'll be able to hear it on our news partner, News Radio 93.9 FM, 1240 KQEN. Pregame will start at noon on New Year's Day, so tune in for that. We're going to have Knight down there in Pasadena. He's going to be providing insight and updates for our stations here on the Score as well as over on KQEN. So going to be getting a lot of Night coming up next week with updates from Pasadena. Looking forward to that. Let us know your thoughts. 541-673-5551 if you want to chime in and give us your insight into what you think might happen here. I think it's, I don't know. I mean, it's a 2.5 point spread. Like, I don't think this is going to be more than a one score game.
And you got Texas with a 13.5 point spread.
Jeez.
And Penn State with an 11 point spread.
Yeah. I hope that Boise State shows up. Well, let's look at the rest of
I really want to see Ashton Jency go off against Penn State.
Let's look at the rest of the college football playoff quarterfinal games and discuss when we come back. But, let us know if you got thoughts on Ducks and Buckeyes in the Rose Bowl. Love to hear from you guys on what you think might happen in that game there. Definitely could use some more convincing that I should feel better about the Oregon Ducks going into this one. We'll take the break. It's Knight Jarecki with another sports update for us here as we bring you the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show presented by BTB Moving here on The Score.
For your Score Sports Update, I'm Knight Jarecki. In high school hoops, the Sutherland Bulldogs began play in the Vince Dulcich tournament in Astoria yesterday. The Bulldog boys went down to the wire with Tillamook but came up just short in a 39-37 loss against the Cheesemakers. The Sutherland boys will face off against Estacada this afternoon. The Sutherland girls were outmatched by the Crescent Valley Raiders 55-39. The Lady Bulldogs are slated to face off against Catlin Gable this morning. In other matchups coming up today, the Douglas Trojans face Jefferson in the Harrisburg tournament. Oakland takes on Weston McEwen in the 2A preview tournament in Pendleton. Riddle travels to Illinois Valley. Camas Valley hosts Reedsport. And the Elkton boys continue play in the Classic at Damien as they face off against St. Genevieve at 11 a.m. That tournament down in Covina, California. You can check out the full prep schedule online at 541radio.com. For the Portland Trailblazers, after a couple of days off for the holidays, the Portland Trailblazers returned to the court on Thursday and gave the Moda Center fans a gift against the Utah Jazz. Scoot Henderson hit a fadeaway jumper just before the final form to give the Blazers a 122-120 victory over the Jazz. Portland had to rally from a 15-point deficit to pull off the win. Henderson caught fire in the fourth quarter along with Denny Avdia to spur the Blazers for the win. Avdia scored 14 points in the final period and tied Shaden Sharp with 27 points for the team lead. Henderson had 12 points in the fourth quarter and finished with 18 total points. Portland continues its homestand on Saturday with a game against the Dallas Mavericks. And yesterday in the NFL, it was quite the sleeper between the Seattle Seahawks and the Chicago Bears. The Seahawks able to pull off a 6-3 victory on the road at Soldier Field yesterday against Caleb Williams. And the Chicago Bears, just the second time this season an NFL game, featured no touchdowns.
Whether it's across town or across the state, moving is always a chore. So let BTB Moving help with your next move. BTB Moving is a labor-only company offering statewide services such as packing and unpacking, loading and unloading, piano moving, cleaning services, and 24-hour emergency services. BTB Moving is an affordable veteran-owned company here to help with your next move. Call 541-315-0122 or find BTB Moving on Facebook. That's BTB Moving for all your moving needs.
Oregon's only statewide sports talk show wants to hear from you, Douglas County.
Sean is in Roseburg. Sean, welcome.
The Bald-Faced Truth with John Canzano is talking Beavers, Ducks, the NFL, Blazers, and more.
Let's go to Daryl, who's in Myrtle Creek.
Share your opinions by calling 503-417-7575.
Let's go to the phone lines. Kelly is in Glide, Oregon. Is that right, Kelly?
That's right. Hi. I can't believe you took my call.
Sports talk for Oregonians. It's the Bald-Faced Truth with John Canzano. Weekdays 3 to 6 on The Score. Chilling at the tailgate party, getting ready for the games. This is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving.
Oh, we appreciate the sponsorship all season long from BTB Moving. If you've got a move in your future, reach out to them and they will help provide the labor services for your moving needs. They're veteran-owned, affordable, dependable, efficient, and careful. Senior and veteran discounts are available. Book now at 541-315-0122 or find them on Facebook. It's BTB Moving. Well, we are moving right along into the rest of the quarterfinal matchups in the college football playoffs that are going to be coming up here. December 31st, you've got Penn State and Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl. That should be a fun one. Was it the Fiesta Bowl that Boise State had their big one against Oklahoma years ago?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
They've had 3 wins in the Fiesta Bowl.
Ooh.
They beat Oklahoma in
Look out.
one of them. They beat Arizona, I know for sure, in one of them in 2014 when Arizona beat Oregon that year and went to the Pac-12 championship. And then there's one other Boise State Fiesta Bowl they've been in. I know this because they've said they're 3-0 in the Fiesta Bowl, and they're wearing the same uniforms. Despite being the higher seed, they're going to wear the blue helmets, the white jerseys, and orange pants because they've worn that every single Fiesta Bowl, and they've won them all.
All right.
So,
okay. Look at that.
I'm going to think about it for a second. I know that there is another game. I just don't know who they beat. And I remember the Oklahoma game for sure, and I know the Arizona game. That's where we're kind of left up to.
That's December 31st, 4:30 kickoff from the Fiesta Bowl, Boise State and Penn State. Then on New Year's Day, you've got 3 games going on. It starts off with the Peach Bowl. That is Arizona State and Texas squaring off. It is a 10 o'clock start time here on the West Coast, and that'll be Texas and Arizona State. ASU, the Big Ten champions this year. That'll be followed by the Rose Bowl, 2 Big Ten programs, now rivals in the Big Ten. Oregon and Ohio State kicking off 2 o'clock. That is a game you can find on our news partner, News Radio 93.9 FM at 1240 KQEN. And then wrapping up the day, it's Georgia and Notre Dame on January 1st, your New Year's Day festivities. 5:45 kickoff from the Sugar Bowl, Georgia and Notre Dame.
So Boise State and Doug Martin beat TCU and Andy Dalton in 2010 in the Fiesta Bowl.
Okay, there we go.
So there's
I'm surprised you didn't know that one.
I am honestly surprised too.
Big TCU fan.
Big TCU guy. But yes. I was a little bit after that. My TCU era was like 2013 to like 2017, 18. Actually, it was funny. We were talking about it last week on the show about South Lake Carroll versus Westlake because that's where Cade Klubnik and Quinn Ewers went.
Okay.
Quinn Ewers, he went to Carroll High School. Last quarterback to come out of college before him from Carroll that I can think of that at least made a big impact was Kenny Hill, who was the Texas A&M quarterback that took over for Johnny Manziel.
Oh.
He was like a sensation. He threw for like 400 yards in his first game as a starter after Manziel. He got the nickname Kenny Thrill because
I remember that.
Kenny Thrill, right?
Yeah,
so
I do remember that.
He ended up transferring from Texas A&M to TCU and led TCU to a really good season in 2018. And a lot of people thought that, he was going to be the guy. He was not the guy.
He was.
He actually, you know what? He might be, I saw at one point he was like a coaching now. Let's see. He's currently the associate head coach and running backs coach at Incarnate Word. He was the offensive quality control coach at Cal for a year, and he was TCU's quarterback coach in 2021.
Isn't somebody transferring to Incarnate Word? Going down?
Yes, Giovanni McCoy. The
Oregon State guy.
Yeah, so there you go. Giovanni McCoy is going to go work with Kenny Hale. This is the obscure
way to bring it all the way back around.
Awful. And then the quarterback before that really got Carroll on the map was Chase Daniels before he went to Mizzou. He had a really good career there, and their stadium is massive.
Yeah.
Like obviously in Texas they have some high school football stadiums. I believe theirs was, and I mean there's a few more now, but I believe theirs was the first football stadium with the big jumbotron.
Ooh.
Like it had like a big screen at the very end. 2-layer Decker Stadium. Nice.
Dang.
Nice.
That would be pretty sweet.
Right.
Looking at these matchups here, so you got the Peach Bowl, Texas, Arizona State, the Fiesta Bowl, Penn State, Boise State, Sugar Bowl, Notre Dame, Georgia. Like I said, I think Ohio State, Oregon has got the opportunity to be the best of the 4 games that goes on yesterday. Let's rank them. So I think Oregon, Ohio State, number 1. Do you have a disagreement?
No, I do not have a disagreement. That is clearly the best game on the schedule. Now, would it be so funny if like Oregon just came in and dominated the game and
made it like the most boring game of the tournament of that round?
Yes,
that would be great. I would love every minute of that. Number 2.
This is where it kind of gets tough.
Yeah. I think I'm going to go Notre Dame, Georgia.
See, I'm going to flip it. I'm going to do Texas, Arizona State.
Really?
Yes.
That's not the game I thought you'd pick if you weren't going to pick the same one as me.
Really?
Yeah, I was thinking you were thinking Boise State, Penn State.
Dude, I just don't really have a ton of faith in Texas. Like, I understand that they beat Clemson this last week, but like, I don't know.
You didn't have a ton of faith in them against Clemson either last week.
Yeah, exactly. And I like, for me, like, Arizona State in the season that they've had, I understand they have a young freshman quarterback, but they've only lost 1 game with him as their starting quarterback. And since that,
they're getting hot at the right time.
They are getting hot at the right time, both offensively and defensively. It seems like they've kind of put it together. And when you have a running back like Cam Scatabo, it makes things a little bit tough to match up defensively, because this guy, I mean, I'm telling you, like every time he gets the ball, it feels like he's getting 3 to 4 yards.
I don't know. You said that; it made me think that. Sorry.
No, but he is like,
yeah, no, Scatabo's fun,
and that's the thing is that like because Arizona State has him, because they have several Texas transfers, which I think is just a little bit funny, and because they've had the time to prepare for Texas, I think they went into that matchup expecting Texas to beat Clemson. They kind of have that advantage that Oregon is. So I think that with all that kind of factored in, I wouldn't be surprised if Arizona State kept it close against Texas.
Gives Texas a challenge there. So
why Notre Dame, Georgia?
A Georgia backup quarterback. I think being the team that Georgia is, being the team that Notre Dame is, I think the prestige of those two programs, and I think that this has a chance. Like Notre Dame's defense. Really good.
Really good.
They looked really good in their game against Indiana. I think Georgia's been a team that has kind of been like on that edge, teetering on that edge, almost had that game against Georgia Tech go the wrong direction. This could be a fun match. I just think it could be a really close matchup. And I think because they are two programs that have crazy fan bases that expect to win national championships, even though Notre Dame hasn't done it recently. Georgia has. Their coach, Kirby Smart, has been kind of taking shots at anything and everything to try and find some way to get his team the upper hand. To me, I feel like that matchup just seems really interesting to see, and especially with a backup quarterback for Georgia. And, I mean, people will probably make excuses for him if they don't win, but, he came in and helped them win the SEC title, so you would kind of expect that they've got a guy that they can believe in, and he's had plenty of time to get ready for the matchup. So
he did get rocked in that game.
Yeah, man, he did. That one run he had towards the – I don't know how he held on to that football. But so I think it could be a really fun matchup. I think that one has a lot of – I'm interested in all these. I think Texas-Arizona State has a chance to either be – the worst game of the round or the most entertaining game, whether or not it's the most compelling game, whatever, but I think it could be the most entertaining with some of the craziness that could go on there.
It feels like a classic Big 12 matchup, because even though Texas is in the SEC now and Arizona State's in the Big 12, these are teams that can put up some points, it feels like. So we might have a shootout there. My thing about Texas, though, is I don't know who they've beaten.
They do still seem to be unproven.
They are very unproven. And even if they beat ASU, I don't know if I would
Still
consider
asking the question?
Still asking the question, right? Because they beat Clemson in round one.
Which is interesting because they are now the number one betting favorite to win it all. And they would have to go through either Ohio State or Oregon in the next round to get to the championship game.
They really like that roster. They just really do. And I think that, defensively they have a really good unit. That's where they probably succeed the most. But looking at their schedule, it's like they beat Colorado State, they beat UTSA, they beat UL Monroe, they beat Mississippi State, they beat Oklahoma, they beat Vanderbilt by 3 points, they beat Florida, they beat Arkansas by 10 points, they beat Kentucky, and they beat Texas A&M. Like, fine, like that's the Indiana argument, right?
Yeah.
Like that is the Indiana argument. Sure, they went on the road and beat Michigan, but what did Michigan do this year? Other than beat Ohio State?
It's been a very wide open season. So yeah, it's kind of
to me, Texas is still a little bit unproven. That's why I feel like Arizona State can hang with them. The same way that Vanderbilt was able to hang with Texas, the same way that A&M kind of kept it a close game, even though A&M wasn't doing anything offensively. I think that Arizona State has the ability to compete with Texas. For Georgia, on the other hand, I mean, losing a quarterback's huge. Losing a senior quarterback is even bigger, and having to replace him with a guy they got pretty rocked in his last game. I don't know, like, how much that's going to affect him. I don't know if he's going to have quick memory. I don't even know if he remembers the hit. To be honest, it was that hard. But with that, all that said, it's still Georgia. It's still Kirby Smart.
Yeah.
And it's the they don't think that we can do this mindset, even though everybody thinks Georgia can do that.
Everybody counts us out, except for nobody counts us out.
And that's what's going to happen. I think Dan Lanning's doing that this week. Nobody believes in us.
I would totally do it. But I think he also has more of a point than Georgia does.
Yes.
Because I think there's plenty of people counting Oregon out. So, okay, I've got Oregon, Ohio State. I've got Rose Bowl 1, Sugar Bowl 2. You've got Rose Bowl 1, Peach Bowl 2.
Yeah.
Who's sitting at number 3?
Number 3 for me is the All-State Sugar Bowl, Georgia versus
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame. I think that's going to be a solid game. I don't think it's going to be as good as Texas ASU. At least I'm excited. I'm more excited. I'm optimistic for Texas ASU.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the Fiesta Bowl. I'm excited to see Ashton Jeanty against, another Big Ten defense. I mean, look, Oregon was, they faced Oregon. Oregon's Big Ten defense out there. Granted, it was, that was the second game of the season, right? Yeah. So it was very early on. Teams getting a lot of things still put together. Teams are definitely not the same now as they were back then. But I'm just excited to see. I think Boise State brings a lot of excitement. Their fan base is fantastic. I think that just could be a really fun, again, another fun game there.
My thing, too, about Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl and what Ashton Jeanty can do, like, do you think if Ashton Jeanty runs for 300 yards and, 4 touchdowns against Penn State, do you think that a lot of people regret their Heisman vote?
I definitely think they would. I very much think they would. That would be, one for the record books right there. That would be
one of the best.
That would be the Verbo Fiesta Bowl. It would no longer be called that. It would just be the Ashton Jeanty game. They would have changed the name.
You know how fun they'd be, because of NIL nowadays and college players. Could a college player sponsor a bowl game? Could you have the Ashton Jeanty Sports Bowl?
the Ashton Jeanty Yards After Contact Bowl. Welcome in. Missed Tackles Bowl. That would be something. We've got Snoop Dogg. We have the Jimmy Kimmel Bowl. Why not?
The Gronk Bowl.
Yeah, the Gronk Bowl this year. Why not? Would that player be obligated to play in that game? This is the Dylan Gabriel
Hawaii Bowl.
17-year Senior Bowl.
Oh, jeez.
The Hawaii Bowl. Yeah, that's a good one.
Should they add, I know the Senior Bowl is a thing. Should they have the Super Senior Bowl for the Dylan Gabriels of the world, for the junior college players that are going to get 2 more years of eligibility?
Welcome to the NFL Junior Pro Bowl.
The Super Senior Bowl. Winner gets retirement.
Okay, Grandpa, it's time to go to the NFL now.
Winner gets a month free of LinkedIn Plus.
They get an automatic guaranteed spot on the NFL practice roster. Overall, though, looking at these matches, I think there's reason to be excited about all of them.
Yes.
Whereas the first round, obviously, there were plenty of matchups in there where you kind of expected there could be a lopsided result. I think everybody was hopeful that there would be some competitive games in that first round. We didn't get that. But I think this round, you're truly going to have some games that are going to be pretty interesting.
I think you have two games for sure where you just don't know.
Yeah.
I think those two are Georgia versus Notre Dame. You're kind of like, I don't know. And you kind of have the Oregon-Ohio State. I think that the ASU versus Texas game has a really low floor but a really high ceiling in terms of what that game can provide. And that's why I have it number 2.
Looking at the lines here real quick before we wrap it up and head to our final segment, the Fiesta Bowl has Penn State favored by 10.5. Golly. Then you've got the Peach Bowl with Arizona State and Texas, and the Longhorns favored by 13.5. Right now it is Ohio State favored by 2.5 against Oregon in the Rose Bowl. And then in the Sugar Bowl, it is a 2-point spread. Georgia favored against Notre Dame. Okay, just rapid fire here.
Okay.
Boise State, Penn State, 10.5 points. Pick on against the spread.
Penn State.
You think they cover?
Yeah, I think they cover.
Yeah. I'm gonna
I think Genty gets over 100 yards. I think Penn State's defense is really good, and I think that defensively, I'm not sure if Boise State has the pieces to stop the run game of Penn State.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm willing to go Penn State with the point. Boise State with the points. Arizona State, Texas, 13.5.
Give me the Devils. Forks up. Kenny Dillingham, I believe.
Draws up something.
Dude, he is a motivator just as well as Dan.
Yeah.
Like he goes in there, he's an assassin. He goes in there and he knows what
I'm doing it. I'm going with you. I'm taking the points. Give me Arizona State in the points. Oregon, Ohio State. I'm taking Oregon plus the points. Give me the points. Yeah. Georgia and Notre Dame. Georgia -2.
Notre Dame. I don't believe in Georgia's backup quarterback. I don't know.
I know. I feel really shaky doing that too.
I don't know Gunnar Stockton that well. The limited that I saw, it seemed like he was more competent than Carson Beck, but still, first start of your college career in the college football playoff against Notre Dame, it's tough. And I think the other thing too is that with Riley Leonard, you get an experienced quarterback who can run the football, and Georgia struggled against the running quarterbacks. Not saying that Riley Leonard's like this magnificent athlete.
Jalen Milroe.
Exactly. But he still has had like 14 rushing touchdowns this season. Yeah. You saw it against Indiana. He was able to use his legs to extend plays and get first down. So I think that plays a factor.
I think I'm going to take Georgia -2. So I can't take all of the underdogs.
All the underdogs.
I can't take all the points. So I think I would.
I didn't even realize. I guess I
you took. You got Penn State. Yeah, I took the two long shots, and then So I think I would lay 2 points with Georgia.
A lot of fun games to talk about.
For sure. It will be a fun Friday show coming up next week. Our first of 2025 with Knight back from Pasadena after the Rose Bowl. All right, we got to get to our final break here of the hour as we start wrapping up things here in hour number 2 and start wrapping up 2024 as well. We will come back and finish things out. It's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show presented by BTB Moving here on The Score.
At Quality Fence, we know fencing, but that doesn't help us reach our customers the way radio can. Hi, I'm Greg from Quality Fence in Roseburg. Since working with Brook Communications for the past 6 years, we've seen our business continue to grow. They put local businesses first, and they're great to work with every step of the way. So, if you need fencing, come see us at Quality Fence on Northeast Diamond Lake Boulevard. And if you need to grow your business, call Brook Communications at 672-6641 and let them get to work for you.
Combine the fun of bowling with the thrill and excitement of a casino. It's Monte Carlo Bowling. Join 10 Down Bowling on New Year's Day at 1 p.m. to see if Lady Luck is on your side. Just $18 gets 3 games of action and a chance to win cash prizes. Monte Carlo bowlers must be 18 or older. Get ready to roll and win big. Call or visit 10 Down Bowling on Northeast Diamond Lake Boulevard to secure your spot at the annual New Year's Day Monte Carlo event.
Well, another year's gone by. Did you take time to relax and renew? Did you have any new adventures? The staff at Travel Leaders Flyaway Travel are experts at putting together vacations that promise to provide lifelong memories and a chance to give you a fresh look at the world. Whether you like land or sea vacations, we can find something that matches what you have in mind. Plan now to go somewhere you've never been or revisit a favorite from long ago. Call Travel Leaders Flyaway Travel at 672-5701 before another year passes you by.
What is dedication?
My daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanting to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Coming up on your sports schedule this weekend, plenty of NFL coverage. We've got a doubleheader on Saturday, a tripleheader on Sunday, plus Monday Night Football coming up next week. And don't forget to tune in for the Rose Bowl, Oregon and Ohio State, coming up January 1st on KQEN. Find the full broadcast schedule posted at 541radio.com.
Recapping games and looking ahead to the weekend, this is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving.
So, NFL on Netflix got tested out on Christmas, a doubleheader there. Best streaming-only audience for the NFL. Ever. Yeah.
I think that just shows how many more people have Netflix compared to Amazon Prime.
Yeah,
I think that's a big factor too.
I think that's a very valid point. In
fact, and even across internationally, a lot of people just have Netflix wherever.
That's the thing. As we welcome you back here to the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving. He's Knight Jarecki. I'm Joey Keeran. Happy to have you with us here on this Friday. I agree. I'm not against the streaming thing until it's on a stream that I don't currently have. That's when I'm frustrated. The college football playoff games, they had 2 games on TNT. They were woefully underviewed. The numbers for those were not great. And I think a lot of it has to be the fact that TNT is not a streaming thing that's easy to get everywhere.
Yep.
And so I'm all Amazon Prime. And people have.
That's going to affect you for the NHL playoffs too, because the NHL playoffs typically are on TNT.
I mean, let me tell you how much I'm going to miss those.
And college basketball, March Madness.
Yes, no, that's where it really comes into play.
Yeah,
big time. But
hey, you're gonna miss hockey. Come on now.
Remind me about that. I got something I want to share with you after we get off the air. I don't have a way to share it while we're on the air, so otherwise I would. But I think that's my biggest thing about streaming is Netflix, like you said, widely utilized. And Amazon Prime, I would say a lot of people have for all the other reasons you have Amazon Prime, for all the shipping and savings on things you buy on Amazon, some of their other products that you are able to watch. I think a lot of people have Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Does everybody have Peacock?
No.
That's what are you watching on Peacock? Not very much. What are you watching on Paramount? Not these standalone ones that it's just limited content. It definitely hurts to not have those, and I think that's where things really come into play.
Here's my biggest gripe with the streaming thing is that I like the feel of being able to switch between games.
Yeah, that is big
during commercials. I understand that advertisers hate it.
Yes,
but as a sports fan, it's nice to have the basketball game on one channel, flip back and forth between the two games and have that set up so easily. You're able to do that with cable, and you're able to do that with even streaming services like YouTube TV. I'm sure you're able to do that with Fubo, the way that you utilize that. But when you have a game on Netflix, you can't flip back and forth.
Yeah.
You have to constantly go back. And, like, if you do want to go back and forth, you have to exit the Netflix app, go to your whatever, if it's satellite or YouTube TV, Fubo, whatever it is. Then you have to open up that app. Then you have to select the game. And then if you want to go back to Netflix, it's just a tiresome, lonesome process that, wasn't necessarily a problem when it was just cable.
Yeah. I heard this actual comment, and I hadn't thought about it. I mean, I was at home, and I did watch it in multiple different rooms, but, like, I just set up my Netflix in a different room when I went to go do something else on the day. But somebody was talking about, like, it was Christmas. People have to travel from point A to point B sometimes. They got to go visit family. They do stuff at home. They go visit the in-laws or whatever, church, whatever it may be, that you could pause the game on your Netflix, go where you're going, and start the game again where you left it off on Netflix.
Do you know, like, I haven't looked on Netflix yet, but, like, do you know if the games are still archived there?
I don't know, actually. I think because they both had kind of similar graphics that on the thumbnails, it was hard to tell which one was which.
Special or something.
Yeah,
like
it was hard to tell which game was which, and one said, like, live or something, and the other one said leaving. And I was like, oh, so, like, it's, when a show's about to be no longer on Netflix, it'll say it's leaving, so you know that you need to watch it now. Otherwise, you're not going to have that opportunity. So that's because, like, the fight that they had, the Tyson fight, you can still find that on there. So
that's a good question.
I'm pretty sure you can.
The funniest thing, though, I saw was, like, this guy. It was like when I finally tell my wife that I want to watch some Christmas special on Netflix, she gets really excited, and then I put on the Chiefs game.
Perfect. It worked fine for me. Worked fine for you. No streaming glitches or anything like that.
No streaming issues for me. I thought the halftime show was cool for Beyonce.
That was the most viewed part.
Yeah.
27 million people peaked at the
Beyonce Bowl.
At Beyonce's Bowl. I really wasn't into it. Like, I didn't get into the Beyonce Bowl. I mean, I had it on, but it didn't really draw my attention.
I know a lot of people like Beyonce.
Yeah, they do. Very much so. It peaked average 24.3 million people watching for Baltimore and Houston. So it's less than last year when it was on regular networks at 28 million. All right, hey, safe travels down to Los Angeles and Pasadena, buddy. Enjoy the Rose Bowl, we'll talk to you leading up to the game as well as after it. Have a great weekend, everybody. Happy New Year's, and we'll talk to you next week in 2025 here on the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving. Whether it's across town or across the state, moving is always a chore. So let BTB Moving help with your next move. BTB Moving is a labor-only company offering statewide services.